Here we go. I'm Brenda Craddock. Oops. Did it start? No, it didn't. I heard some noise. Do we still have somebody who has their microphone on? I'm Brenda Craddock. I'm the executive director of the foundation. I'm going to roll a short video and then we'll get right to our presentation from Susan.
Rochester Public Library Foundation was formed in 1996 in an effort to raise private funds for the library and ensure its continued success and achievements.
The foundation supports initiatives, often creating the only opportunity for pilot projects and incentives for community feedback.
In past years, we've helped launch the Wi-Fi hotspot program, providing connectivity in homes that have no internet.
Rochester Reading Champions, which pairs tutors with struggling readers to achieve results.
And last year, patrons joined in the commitment to help the library go fine-free, to help remove barriers to accessing the library's resources.
We are proud of the positive impact these programs have had on our community.
Tutors remark on the joy it brings them to see the confidence and pride on their students' faces as they master skills they had all but given up on.
Our neighbors are able to apply for jobs and video chat with relatives as they keep social distance in their homes using our hotspots.
Materials are being checked out in large quantities and picked up through touchless delivery in the Mayo Civic Center ramp and the library's newly installed walk-up windows.
But we still do not have all the resources we need to help all those who could benefit from tutoring.
The hotspots continue to have a wait list.
And we continue to investigate ways we can grow our service for our community, especially as we have a greater year than ever before.
Thank you for supporting the library and foundation. The kindness of people like you means so much and allows our community to flourish.
Thank you for sharing our belief in the importance of information, books, materials, and resources.
Giving everyone equal access to learn, grow, and thrive is at the center of everything we do.
If you would like to pitch in to help us in our efforts, please go to our website. And thank you for your support.
Excellent. All right, so just a couple housekeeping items here. Make sure your microphone is on mute, except for you, Susan. We're gonna need you to tell your story. We will be taking questions, kind of as we're going along, or towards the end, whatever, if we're having a good conversation, we're gonna go with it. But if you want to ask a question, go ahead and pop it in the chat. To chat with everyone, go ahead and select everyone. And then consider using, when we're going to be showing a PowerPoint with a lot of fantastic photos, when that's happening, go ahead and you can choose your view, and it's the speaker view side by side, and you'll see the PowerPoint and you'll see Susan talking. And then also, if you have technical difficulties, we do have a few technical gurus here today, and we'll try to help you. Otherwise, the session is recorded and we would be able to send a link afterwards. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Susan Waughtal. She wears many hats. She's an artist, she's a farmer, she has a great love for the environment, and along with her husband, Roger, she has created a world that's an incredible mix of all of these facets of her life. This world is called Squash Blossom Farm. Today, Susan's going to give us a virtual tour of her farmstead and talk about the steps her family took to turn this dream into a reality. So without further ado, Susan, I'm going to go ahead and I'll start advancing through the PowerPoint.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to share my dream. I can talk about this for a really long time, so I'll try not to get sidetracked with little stories. But this is Squash Blossom Farm, and we moved here in 2008. So we're starting our 13th year on this farm. Oh, if you want it, I'll do this to change the. This is going to be a little story about how two people with no farming experience pursued their dream and became farmers. That's my husband, Roger Nelson. And Raj and I met in 2nd grade and we're friends all of our time growing up. Who knew you would meet your spouse in 2nd grade? but that's what happened. I think it's a good idea to marry your best friend. I'm going to give you a little tour of our farm. This is the entrance as you come in and the 3 friendly dogs that will greet you when you come in. So Raj and I were friends all through high school, and I guess you would call it a date. We would go out cross-country skiing at night in our high school years, and then we'd go to the state park on Lake Bemidji. We lived in Bemidji, and it was always really cold. So then we go to Renaud's Pizza, and we'd have hot chocolate, and we would talk about philosophical things. And a lot of times we talked about our idea for a utopian community, which would be a farm, and there would be people working together, growing their own food, doing music and art. And we both agreed this was like the dream community, but who knew that it would ever actually happen in our lives? We didn't even really realize we would ever end up married to each other. But so when we did get married, I told Raj that I really wanted a farm. So our whole lives, every time we moved, we looked for our dream farm. Even after we'd move into a new house, we'd continue our forays out into the country looking for our dream farm. And we never found the right place that we could afford, that was close enough, that had the right feel. And so we kind of were giving up on it because our kids were growing up, they were going to college. But I sort of went through a little midlife crisis, turning 50, and was kind of burnt out from a job that I loved, but I was working 70 to 80-hour weeks, and I was totally burned out, and I went into a depression. My kids had fledged, and my grandma died, and I was really close to her. And so I started journaling, and this idea of the farm kept coming up. And I told Raj I still hadn't given up on that dream, even though we were all now old and had kind of thought maybe we would just travel. and so he agreed that we should look for a farm, and it took 2 years. We looked at a lot of places and made offers on a couple of places, but they didn't pan out. And all the times we would drive around the countryside looking, we'd go past this one farm and I would say, oh, that would be the perfect farm. And one day, 2 years into our looking, I drove by and it had a for sale sign, and I was just stunned, and it took a long time to make it happen. It was more expensive than we thought we could afford, but ultimately it all happened. And the day that they accepted our offer, I went home and started making a list of possible names for the farm. And I had about 50 names, everything from Greenhorn Farm to Pipe Dream Farm. And our family had a meeting, and we all voted on a name, and we agreed on Squash Blossom Farm. And we realized, I thought it was great because it would be both flowers and vegetables. But after we decided on it, I thought, oh, this is great. Now our dream will either blossom or be squashed. So it was like perfect for many reasons. And we almost from the very beginning kind of put our tag on it: local food, local art, local music. That was kind of our whole goal with the farm. It's a 1910 farm. With these are all original buildings that you see. At least I'm not sure about the garage when that was built, but this is a little tour. When you stand in front of the house, this pan, it's kind of distorted, but from the left to the right is the garage, the granary, which when we first moved here, we turned it into a store. Now it's my art studio. The big dairy barn tucked back there behind to the right of the dairy barn is what was once a pig barn, but the last people had turned it into a loafing shed for horses. And then the chicken coop, which is an awesome chicken coop. I think it was built for about 300 chickens, but we have a lot, but not that many. And then behind you is, when you're standing there, is our awesome farmhouse, which I really love. And the people before us had done a lot of work to it. So we didn't have to do any work on the house except put a roof on it. We could concentrate on the outbuildings, and we've been spending our time ever since fixing them up. And when we first moved here, we thought, what are we ever going to do with all these buildings? We'll never be able to use them all. And now they are all jam-packed with businesses and projects and workshops and animals, and we really could use a shed. So who knew? We have 10 acres total. It was once a 200-acre farm. About half of it was sold off in the Depression, I think. And then in the 1970s, when the dad died, the wife sold off all but the 10-acre corner of the farm with all the buildings, and that's what we have.
So, hey, Susan, we have a question. What exactly is a loafing shed?
Oh, a loafing shed is a three-sided barn. So one end is open, and usually the end that's open faces out of the wind. So it gets the sun and it's sheltered from the wind. Animals are sheltered from the wind and the weather and the snow and the sun. If they go in the summer, they might go in for shade. But it's open. It doesn't have doors. It's not enclosed.
Okay.
So these are some of the projects we've added since we moved here. And if you start in the bottom left corner, the first thing we built really was a high tunnel greenhouse. We got one of those USDA grants and built a greenhouse for extended season growing so we could grow through the winter. And it worked pretty wonderfully. But as we started doing more things, we really needed something that was an interior swing space for events. And then, so the upper left corner, that's our greenhouse that we built. We found a used greenhouse, took it down and re-erected it. And, we thought we'll take it down on Saturday and put it up on Sunday. That we took it down on a Saturday, but it took us 2 years to put it back up. We'd get part of it up and end for the day, and then a storm would come up and blow out a panel and we'd have to start all over. But it's a quite lovely space that we use for events and also some growing. Then that crazy pergola gazebo building is it was a silo foundation with a tree growing out of it. The silo had burned down in the 1920s and they never rebuilt it. So we had to cut the tree down because we were putting solar panels on and it was dying anyway. So we turned that into an aquaponics system with fish and plants growing in towers that you can see kind of in the back, and the water circulates through them from the fish. The plants use up the nutrients from the fish water and help keep it clean, and the fish nourish the plants. And then we have a little library. I'm happy to say, thanks to the public libraries program a few years ago, putting libraries out in the county. And in the summertime, normally I try and stock it with mostly like farm and environmental books for kids, but some other stuff too, but that's my focus. And then the unbearably cute garden shed, which we found online on Craigslist. It was just a shell, and I had a great intern who helped us make it be really cute. We're very concerned about the environment and the integrity of this historic farm, and we're using a permaculture approach. Permaculture it's a permanent culture. It's kind of a trying to do farming on a sustainable way to farm. And there's a lot of principles. There are 12 key principles, but these are the principles that make the most sense for us and what we're focusing on. Diversity, both of animals and enterprises and species of plants. Energy efficiency, we were really grateful I think the third year we moved here, Raj's mom wanted to help us invest in our farm, and she said, would you guys like solar panels? She is really concerned about the environment too. So she helped us put solar panels on our barn. And at that time, it's an 8.1 kilowatt system that actually provided all the electricity for our farm at that time. Now we've doubled our enterprises, so it's only providing about half of our electricity, but it's still fantastic. We don't use any chemicals. We're not certified organic, but we farm in an organic way. Everything is based on a farm ecosystem, so things are interrelated, such as the fish and the plants, or the chickens and the cows. I can talk about that a little bit more later. We're very into reuse and recycling. My whole past career was in, I spent many years working in the recycling field and solid waste management. And conservation, we have this beautiful, we want to conserve energy, conserve water, conserve the whole environment, and restore our prairie, a remnant of prairie that's kind of being overgrown by invasive plants. And then we want a connection to the community. So those are kind of the key things that we try and integrate into everything we do. So when we first moved here, our kids had fledged, and we thought, well, we're just going to have this little hobby farm, and it will be, we'll have a garden and maybe some bees and a couple chickens. But as soon as we moved here, our kids stopped out of college and came home and said, we're going to help you launch the farm. They're so gung-ho. It was great. And so the things that we thought would be kind of on a modest scale, we sort of dived in on a huge scale, because we had their energy and enthusiasm and their dreams as well. So this is last summer's garden. This is about a fourth of our veggie garden. But we started out with a veggie garden. It was huge. We grew, the first year we grew 130 tomato plants, which was, and it was a bumper crop. So we had tomatoes coming out of our ears. It was horrible. We had fruit flies everywhere in our house because I couldn't keep up with the tomatoes. But the next year we started a CSA, a community supported agriculture program. And that is people from the community become members of our farm and pay upfront a fee to get a box of vegetables every week. So every week they get whatever vegetables are in season that week. And lately I ended my CSA 2 years ago, and it actually, I could have done it last year, but with the pandemic, I had a different plan that didn't pan out because of the pandemic. But so I had a lot more veggies than I needed. We didn't have things going on where I could use them. So I had a farm stand. So we just keep trying, experimenting different things. We use a lot of the herbs and berries and vegetables in our baking for the farmers market and the co-op. So, my first present on the farm, our first Christmas, my kids gave me all kinds of chicken gear. And they helped me turn the chicken coop into something usable. It was kind of in bad shape. And they gave me a certificate for chickens. And we found a few chickens on Craigslist, 9 motley chickens that we started with. And it kept growing. And that summer, my daughter, one of my 2 daughters are very entrepreneurial. And the younger daughter said, I want to raise chickens for meat, to raise money for college. And that was kind of surprising to me because she'd been a vegetarian since she was 12. But it turned out that their whole philosophy was that if you're going to eat meat, it should be animals that have had a really wonderful life. And so we started out that first full summer with 400 meat chickens in 2 batches of 200. And then we had 30 laying hens. And now I'm down to, I don't raise meat chickens anymore. It was really kind of fun to do that. But I just have my chickens that are pets and provide a lot of eggs for my baking. And they also graze around the yard. They go through the gardens. They eat a lot of bugs. Like, for instance, I have had no problem with Japanese beetles. We don't have any ticks anymore. Like we did the first year, I was picking 40 ticks off of each dog every day. I haven't seen a wood tick in years. So they do a great job just kind of foraging around and cleaning up all the bugs. And then of course their bedding provides fertilizer. We compost it and it goes back into the garden. We also have half a dozen ducks, a pair of heritage geese that you can see in the back of this picture. They're cotton patch geese. They're really sweet. I love them. A big, beautiful turkey that's not in this picture, and a bunch of guineas that are really great at eating up the ticks. My other daughter decided that she was going to raise money for college by raising 2 pigs. These are her 2 pigs after they were just about harvesting stage, Freckles and Destroyer, and I never knew which one was which. So we found a little building out in the woods that we didn't even know was here when we bought the farm. It was a place where they had raised pheasants, because they were into pheasants, I guess. And so we turned that into a little pig shed, and we had pastured pigs. They had about a half an acre to forage, and they cleaned up a lot of the buckthorn and sumac and stuff that was taking over everywhere. They did an incredible job turning over the soil. And then my daughter sold quarters of pork, and we had some ourselves. So they were quite delicious, but we discovered that pigs, even though they had all that acreage, they were still very smelly. And the place that we had them, the smell would come right to our patio, and it was just not pleasant. And when they got really big, when they were about, over 150 pounds or more, they were kind of scary to me because they're so low and can knock you over. And so when my kids left, we haven't done pigs since, and I don't really plan to do them, but they were really fun to do that year. We also, my younger daughter, the chicken daughter, she was really crazy. She also raised 30 turkeys and 2 steers. And then about a year into or half a year into our steers, she found an ad for a milk cow on Craigslist that was up north of the cities. And it was really cute. It's a spotted one named LaFonda. And we went on a road trip to meet LaFonda, and we fell in love with her, and just on a whim got her, and they brought her down to us because we didn't have a trailer or anything. And we don't even really know anything about her history. We know she's half Jersey. That's where her ears come from. But we don't know where her spots come from. She's kind of a mystery cow. She was the best cow. We hand milked her, and she was probably, she'd already had 2 calves. So she was probably 5 or 6, maybe, when we got her. And we bred her. And like, this is crazy. Like, the things that I never would have dreamed I would be doing, like ordering semen online for artificial insemination of cows and finding someone to do that, and learning how to milk cows and dealing with all the things that go along with cows. And we had, we had 2 calves with her. One of the calves I helped pull the calf, the first calf she had before I was even around. And it was just so thrilling because cows are my favorite animals. And who would have thunk I would ever get to actually have a cow in my old age? And we had so much fun with the milk. I mean, it was a lot of work milking her twice a day. And I'm really slow. My hands are really arthritic. My daughter could milk her in 10 or 15 minutes. It would take me 40 minutes to milk her, and my hands would be dying. But we had all this beautiful milk that we would drink. We had so much cream. We were always, I thought we would lose weight on a farm working so hard, but we had all this cream. We were eating creme brulee and ice cream and whipped cream and making cheese every day. And then I even found out that I could make casein paint, and I did some art using her milk to use up the milk. We had just an abundance of milk, more than we could possibly use. We raised the steers for beef. The cows also served many purposes. Part of the thing about permaculture is that everything has more than one use. And so our cows did mowing of the pasture. They gave us fertilizer, and all of our cows have been fantastic art muses, not just for me. They've inspired a lot of paintings and photography for me, but there have been people who've done quilts and pottery and all kinds of things inspired by LaFonda. She just really became a beloved character and has her own Facebook page. She sadly died a few years ago, and that was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever been through with an animal. But anyway, I don't regret a moment of it, even though it was a sad ending. We also have bees. I've had as many as 4 hives. I've got 2 right now. And the bees have multiple purposes as well. We primarily wanted them for pollinating the garden, and they do a fantastic job. Like, every morning when you go out in the garden, every single squash blossom has a bee that has sheltered overnight in there and is kind of sleeping, and you have to shake it out when you harvest the squash blossoms. They're really fun. They're the most fascinating life form. They're just so mesmerizing to watch and to learn about. They provide us with wax, which I use to make beekeepers, cotton fabric that is saturated with wax, and then it's natural. Wax is naturally antiseptic, and so you can use it to store food in, and it's soft and it sticks to itself. So you just wrap up your sandwich or your cheese or whatever, and then you can reuse it. Just wash it off with cool water. I'm just starting to do encaustic painting with the wax, another kind of painting using wax as the medium with pigments, and then it's painted hot. And I don't have anything to show you yet with that. And then of course the honey, which we use in our baking, a little bit in our sourdough bread, some of my baking, and then we've started making mead, which is wine made with honey. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. I hope you don't hear them. This is the aquaponics system close up. We have, it's about a 3-foot deep pond in the silo, and we have 30 channel catfish, half a dozen bluegills, and about a dozen or so koi. And I grow a lot of herbs and edible flowers in the towers, like these little tiny marigolds and nasturtiums and kale and basil and things in the towers. And then this year I started making little rafts with plants in them to help shade the water so we don't have such a problem with algae. We have grown tilapia, but they're a warm water fish. And so they can the water has to be above 45 degrees or they start to die, and we don't heat the pond. So you have to harvest them in a year, and they don't get very big. They were really delicious though. This year we got goats, or 2 years ago we got goats, and we got them to control the weeds and eat the invasive buckthorn in our woods, and to kind of take the place of LaFonda to fill the void a little bit of our milk cow. And they're just characters. The left one that looks like he has no ears, he has little tiny ears called elf ears. He's a La Mancha, and the brown one is a mini Nubian. And they're like dogs with no manners. They're really very fun. And they're wethers, so they're neutered males. So we don't have milk from them, and we won't have kids at this point anyway. And then also to fill the void from the loss of LaFonda, I got another cow that I have always dreamed of having, a Scottish Highland. And this is Courgette eating hay when she was probably 1.5 years old. She's really fun to have on the farm. People would come and say, "Is that a real yak?" A lot of people have never heard of these fuzzy cows. They're the oldest breed of cow documented, and they're smaller, very furry, very hardy, and very gentle. And I had still a couple of my calves. So this past fall, I sold the cows. They've gone to a nonprofit called 21 Roots Farm. That is a little farm that works with people with disabilities. It's up northeast of the cities. It's a very cool nonprofit. And they're going to work with people with disabilities and have calves for them to learn how to show and train. We also have acquired a couple of mini donkeys. This is Donk Quixote. So I'm going to go through the 3 aspects that we focus on our farm: local food, local art, local music, and just kind of tell you what we're doing. You know, we started out with local food, meaning growing our own food, which was really great. Like our first Thanksgiving with our own food, we had our own turkey stuffed with our own bread that had sausage from our own pigs. The pumpkin pies were pumpkin and eggs from our garden. All the veggies came from our garden, the potatoes, the Brussels sprouts. We even foraged wild cranberries that weren't very good. They're kind of bitter, but we were so proud of ourselves. But we're growing more food than we can possibly use. So we are growing food for the community, and the community supported agriculture. Here's packaging the boxes, and a sample of that's probably like an August box on the left, with judging from all the tomatoes. And then that other box was my last box of the last season we did. We started, I think we were probably the only CSA that has wood-fired sourdough bread and chocolate. So I think that's pretty cool. The first thing we did when we moved to the farm, the very first month, Raj built this little wood-fired oven on the left-hand side. It's made out of clay that we found on the farm. And so this is a funny thing about Raj. When he was in college, he spent a semester in France, and then he just spent a year traveling around Europe. But he would write me these letters. Do you remember aerograms. They're like a really thin blue sheet of paper and they fold it up to make an envelope. He'd write me these aerograms in tiny print, and they were, I mean, I would call them love letters, except they were about love of French bread. Almost all of them just went on and on and on about how fabulous the bread in France was, and how you walk to the bakery and you would buy a couple loaves of baguette, a couple of baguettes, and on your walk home, you'd be eating it. By the time you got home, it would be all gone. So he's always had this love of crusty bread. So when we moved here, he built this oven and we started to learn how to bake wood-fired sourdough bread. And that little oven would hold about 6 loaves. And when we started baking for the farmer's market, that's where we would bake it all. You build a fire, it gets up to temperature, and then the thick walls hold the heat for a long time. So you can do several batches. That was our first oven. And then we built a really beautiful bigger oven that would do a dozen loaves at a time. And that one's all mosaicked and by friends. And we used it for a couple of years until we built our commercial kitchen. And now our commercial kitchen has a wood-fired oven that is really ugly because it's stainless steel, but we've enclosed it and has a mosaic on the front. And that one can bake 30 loaves at a time. So we're baking at a much bigger scale. And Raj has gotten just really great at making his bread be so beautiful and so delicious and so uniform. And that's a loaf of the sourdough white up in that corner. When we started baking for the farmer's market, my kids were all the ones who got us going on that. And they would bake all night. Sarah, my older daughter, has issues with a sleep disorder. So she was usually awake all night and would bake pies and tarts all night and turnovers. So in the morning, when we took them to the market, they'd still be warm, and they were very popular. And Cadence had her fancy cutout cookies. And when they left, I had to take over all that baking. And I told Raj I didn't move to the farm to be a baker, but I do that. That's my role, my way of supporting the farm. So I've gotten pretty good at baking on a large scale too. And this is a day from last summer, a Saturday market at the farmer's market. 5 years ago, we finished building a commercial kitchen in our barn. So as you approach our barn, the whole front of it had been a workshop, and now it's a commercial kitchen. And we debated about it for years, like, should we do it? Shouldn't we? It was a huge investment and a huge amount of work. We had to put in a new well and a new septic to meet the codes. And we did almost all the work ourselves, but we did have fantastic community support. We did a Kickstarter and raised $26,000 towards our kitchen that way. And we borrowed against our retirement account, and then scoured Craigslist ads and the Restore, and virtually everything in this kitchen is all the materials that built it and the equipment are used or unsalvaged things. All the tiles came from the Restore, the windows, that big huge stove on the left, that was a gift from one of our farmers market customers who is downsizing their kitchen, and it was just an awesome gift. That is a great big 6-burner 2-oven commercial stove, but did require a $28,000 hood to be able to be used. So it was a gift that we weren't planning to do right away, but we're so grateful to have it, because now I can do a lot more baking at one time, and we can do the pizzas and pizza sauce. So anyway, this kitchen is fantastic. We have windows that look out into the farm, and we spend a lot of time out here, and really love it, and are so grateful to have it. We're right now, at this very moment, Raj is out building an addition. We're expanding our storage area and our meat and chocolate making area.
So Brenda was wondering, so just so you know, every time a picture of something, there are a lot of ahs about the adorable animals and lots of smiles regarding their names. But I was drooling when your pastries came up because they just look so delicious. And then are you still taking custom orders for baked goods?
We do, if there's an event or something and it's worth doing it. I mean, I do baking every Friday for the farmer's market, every other Friday this time of year. And I usually before Christmas and Thanksgiving, I'll do a couple days of pie baking and do pies for people. If there's an event, like recently somebody had a wedding and asked me to make big soft pretzels and pretzel bites, so I did that. So, you know, I'll do custom baking, but I won't just make you a batch of cookies in the middle of the week because I have a lot of other stuff going on. But if it's a significant amount, yes. And I did how many 50 little fancy tarts for some business before Christmas that had them for all their employees. So,
Oh, that sounds delicious.
so
Delicious.
yeah, it's really fun. I actually really do like baking, but it's not how I want to spend my whole life. So I spend a day or two a week baking.
Yeah. Well, when you take a leap of faith to follow your dream, it seems like opportunities come up to meet you. So
It's true. It's absolutely true.
oh, pizza. Now I'm still drooling.
So Raj and I we used to live in town in the Slatterly Park neighborhood, really close to the farmer's market. So our every weekend we would go to the farmer's market. So that was really an inspiring aspect of, you know, like our way to be in touch with the farm, even though we weren't farmers. And we were members of one of those farm CSAs, Featherstone Farm. But we always would go as often as possible to pizza farms all along the Mississippi River. There are pizza farms on the Wisconsin side. So you drive, you know, at least an hour, and then you'd order your pizza and wait at least an hour, maybe two, and eat your pizza and drive an hour home. And so we always thought it would be so great to have pizza farms near Rochester. And so as we looked for farms, that was one thing that we were thinking about doing to support the farm. And when we got to this farm, we thought this would be perfect because it's so close to Rochester. And now they've sprung up all over, and you can go to wineries and have pizzas and stuff. It took us so long to get our commercial kitchen that we have a lot more competition now, but we're not really like, you know, a place like Bern that does a huge amount of pizza. We just have a limited amount that we can do, partly because of our parking. We have limited parking, but we make our own crust. It's a sourdough crust made just like the Rogers bread. And I make the sauce. We use tomatoes and herbs from our garden as much as we can till they're all used up. And we make a squash blossom pizza with the squash blossoms from our farm and zucchini. And anyway, people come on summer Sundays from Memorial Day through October usually. We didn't do it last year at all, sadly. But they come, order their pizza, and they can explore the farm, see the animals, play yard games, go a walk in the prairie if they want. There's a remote path, and have pizza and listen to live music. Mm-hmm. And I think we've gotten quite accomplished at these pizzas. And this year, because we didn't have pizza all summer, we experimented and have started making frozen pizzas that we sell at the farmers market. So we make a couple different kinds every week, and they're not exactly, we par bake them in the wood fired oven. They're pretty darn good. We ate one for supper last night and it was pretty darn good, but not exactly like coming right out of the wood.
I have some comments that are cropping up, missing the Sundays at Squash Blossom and the pizzas. And I mean, I know for some of my friends, and I've been to a couple with my kids, it's just, that's on a summer bucket list for me. It's just like, I just want to go out once and listen to the music, and, you know, my kids love the animals. So I think there's a lot of people in the audience who have also enjoyed the hospitality of your farm.
I'm so glad. Thanks for coming, you guys. We really miss it. I was just really sad to not have our crew last year. We had a great crew lined up, and we just decided not to. We let them go when the pandemic started because who knew what was going to happen, and they got other jobs. And so we didn't ever really do it last year, but hopefully this year we can get back into that. The thing that we've been working on the past year during the pandemic is chocolate, bean to bar chocolate. Our oldest daughter, Sarah, has spent much of the last 3 winters in Costa Rica working. She's a botanist, but she's been working on cocoa farms, chocolate farms, and learning how to make chocolate in the Costa Rica. In the area she's in Costa Rica, the indigenous people are the Bribri people. And chocolate is a sacred part of their culture. So she's become really close friends with many of them. And the women are farmers, and the issue is that the state, the country buys up, the government buys up all of their chocolate, and it gets sold to big companies like Hershey's and Nestle's, and to make it a constant product that's consistent from batch to batch, they blend them with chocolate from all over the world. So it loses its individual character. It doesn't, you can't tell that it's their particular beans anymore. So they really want Sarah to help them market their beans to small artisan chocolate makers in the US. And it was getting going, and then the pandemic hit, and so that kind of halted things. But she's down there right now actually working on it. But she invested in all the basic equipment, and was going to make chocolate in Minneapolis from her home, and decided it's just too time consuming, and she doesn't really have the right space and ability to do it. So she taught us how to do it and gave us all her equipment. And so we've been getting these huge bags. They're like 50 kilos. It's over 100 pounds, I think, bags of cocoa beans that come from her farms in Costa Rica. And then it's a really long process. The beans they've been fermented by the farmers themselves in the traditional way. And then we roast them in our wood-fired oven. We'll do our bread baking, and then as the oven cools down and gets to the right temp, we'll roast them. And we bracket the roasting temperatures just like you would bracket a photograph to find out the perfect exposure, to find out the right length of time to roast them, because it's pretty critical. And we're trying to achieve toastiness, but still retain the fruitiness of the less toasted beans. And so we're pretty happy with where we've gotten now. And then the beans get pre-ground. They get, the shells get winnowed out, and then they go into a melanger, which is kind of like a mill. And it's got stone wheels that turn, and you put the sugar in. And our chocolate we're making is 70% chocolate. So it's dark with 70% cocoa beans and 30% organic raw cane sugar. Those are just the only two ingredients in the chocolate, and it melanges for 24 hours or so. And then it has to be tempered. Chocolate, as it cools, forms crystals. There's 5 different kinds of crystals. And if you've ever gotten a chocolate bar that's come out of temper and it's all white and powdery, that's just not very appealing. So it's really critical to get that. You have to bring it down to a certain temperature and then back up. We use previously tempered chocolate to kind of put in there to seed the crystals so they all form the right way. So you get the nice smooth snap of the chocolate, and it's shiny. So, and then we worked probably about 6 or 8 months getting a mold figured out. And we designed a mold that was kind of thick, like a Ritter bar, if you've had those, not quite as big and a little thicker. Well, it was very beautiful. It had our logo on it, but it's kind of hard to break off and share with a friend. So we decided to go with a new mold, and this is our new design, so that it's thinner, easier to share with a friend. And we make different flavors, and we use, this is one in this picture is hazelnut, locally grown hazelnuts from Red Wing. It was Norm Erickson's farm, and a young couple bought it, and I just can't pull up their name to my brain right now of what they call it now. And then we have black walnuts that are also locally grown. And this sweet guy who lives at Shorewood cracks them, and we trade him walnuts for bread. He's just the nicest guy. He's 96, and he provides us with walnuts every week. And then Raj has a fancy recipe called Holy Mole that's Mexican mole spices, chili, cinnamon, there's a little garlic, and then pepitas and sunflower seeds and pistachios. And all of these just get sprinkled on the back so that we don't contaminate our chocolate equipment. We just put it on the back, but they're quite delicious, and we're always inventing new ones, and we'll have some new ones coming out as soon as we get the labels designed for them.
There was one question. Can you describe the taste of your bean to bar chocolate, and how is it different from, like, you mentioned like Nestle and Hershey's, some of the standard ones that we grew up with?
Well, if you've had some different fancy chocolates like that you can get at the co-op or something, that would give you a better idea. It's much on, how would I describe it? It's not nearly as sweet as anything you'd get in a Hershey bar or anything like that. It's not, and I'm a dark chocolate person, so, and there's no milk solids in it, so it's not milk chocolate. But even from batch to batch, I can now discern a difference depending on the batch of beans that we've gotten. We did a tasting party a year ago and had 4 different kinds of beans, and then roasted different lengths of time. And we had people come and taste them. And I think they were able to taste the difference when you compare them side by side. Probably if you eat one week and then one another week, you might not be able to remember the difference enough. But it's, I don't even know, it's smooth. It's got a little bit of fruitiness to it and a little bit of toastiness to it. I think it's kind of an elegant taste. I don't know how else to describe it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I have one of the Holy Moly ones upstairs, and I've been saving it. I cannot wait. So it is about 1:15, and I know we do have some more slides to get through, but I really want to make sure that we get enough time for you to kind of talk about that, living your dream part, because I know that's what. Yes.
Okay, so now we started using our honey to make mead, and now we are in the process of possibly opening a farmstead meadery. Mead is wine made with honey. This is with our raspberries. So stay tuned for that. Local art. One of the big traditions on our farm is the annual Cow Puja and Farm Fair. It's a fall festival featuring cows. It's based on a Hindu tradition, and the Hindu temple comes and does the ceremony, but we have artists and music and local food, of course. We've had other artisan events too. In the spring, we have a Reblossom Festival, which is kind of around Earth Day with more of a garden and recycling theme. We also have offered a lot of workshops and classes. In these pictures, these are 3 of the classes: mandala making class, a wood and twig furniture class, and a pisanki or Ukrainian Easter egg class. We've done that one several years. It's really fun, using my eggs from my chickens. We've also hosted a lot of theatrical performances. Well, not a lot, but we've a couple every summer. Nature, a walking play that's just an incredible musical play with amazing actors from the Guthrie Theater, Southern Theater, Junlun. That one we've been able to bring twice, and it has scenes in 5 areas of our farm. And the Picnic Operetta has come many years there. It's a huge thing, a huge crazy thing, really funny. And they have live music and little appetizers, and then we do pizza afterwards. And then also there's a local group, Squirrels and Company Improv, that we've done several nights of dinner theater improv. And then I've started a sculpture garden, and we do, and I try to, the farm has kind of become my artwork. I don't have time to do much painting anymore, but a lot of the stuff that on the farm are just my fun projects. Like this window on the top is a 5.5-foot diameter window from the Restore that I mosaicked with vintage dishes and little marbles. And it makes kind of a really lovely moon window in the greenhouse. And when we have weddings and things in there, it's a nice background. Music. Every Sunday we have music with our pizza, and we've had some some special concerts and events with music too. And then we've also tried to make a connection with the community. We've hosted usually a couple weddings a summer, some nonprofit fundraisers, dinners on the farm, part of the solar tour, and special events that people have hired, even once a funeral, celebration of life service. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got to our dream. This is my list of when I was 5, what I want to be when I grow up. And there, sorry, Shirley, there's a lot of, this is how to make your dream come true. I think first of all, it's good to have lots of dreams because, that's more likely some of them will come true, and to articulate them, actually write them down and share them with other people, because then it kind of, it makes it more real to do that. so when I actually did grow up, I mean, I'm still kind of growing up and figuring out what I want to be when I grow up, but these are some of the jobs I've actually had. And it turns out that everything you do has skills that can be translated to being a farmer. You know, being a farmer has so many aspects to it. And like, I don't know, being a neighborhood organizer, that's really helped with my community events, and tree planting and loving pets all my life. Well, that's pretty good for being a farmer with animals too. Website design, that's invaluable for a farmer too. So it's not going up, I don't know. So, and then also to seek experience that actually support your dream throughout your life. Like when we were deciding about building the kitchen, I took a job at Sante's as their bread baker for a year, just to learn how to bake bread at a larger scale. And so I think, and when we first moved to the farm, I worked at Sargent's Garden Center, the North Nursery, to just get more experience about plants. And those things I think have really helped in brought in income, but also they've helped being a farmer too.
As I say, Audrey, our library director, was glad that librarian was on the list of things you wanted to be.
I've always loved to read. So.
And people are fondly reminiscing about the nature place. So unique. I remember hearing just a lot of people came to that from all over because it was such a unique experience. So
came from Chicago even, who had seen it down there and then came at the Morton Arboretum and came up here to see it again, or people who'd seen it up in Ely came down here too. Develop partnerships that support your dream, and it really helps to have a partner with a compatible dream. So maybe that's why Raj and I ended up together, because we had this dream from the time we were really young.
That is so cool.
And risk a little or a lot if you dare. When we were deciding to buy this house, this farm, it was like still out of our price range. And my best friends from high school came down to visit, and we came and looked at it. No one was living here, but we drove in and I showed them around, and I said, but it's still like out of our top price range, $10,000 beyond what we think we can possibly afford. And they said, what's $10,000 when it's your dream? So that was really good advice. And when we got the cows, it was very scary. I was scared of cows a little bit because they're so big, and it just turned out to be the best experience you could possibly have done. Work hard when it's your dream. Work feels like play. I mean, sometimes it feels like work at the moment. I have to admit that. But when you're putting it all towards your dream, it has a really good feel to it. Don't give up. Sometimes dreams take a long time. When, we were in our 50s when we finally bought this farm, and we're just finally sort of getting there now in our 60s. So, and we still have a lot of ideas that we plan to achieve. So keep learning. This is part of my farm library. I have probably about 4 times as many books I've acquired over the years at the library book sale and thrift stores and ordering online, and take classes and join organizations like we became members of the Southeast Minnesota Beekeepers Association and Renewing the Countryside and the Sustainable Farmers Association. Watch YouTube videos. Like, you can learn anything. Like, that's how we learned how to milk cows and how to make cheese. Everything about putting your beehives together. That YouTube videos are great. And then ask experts. We're really lucky we have dairy farmers across the road who were so kind. Like, when I wanted to breed my cows, I would just go talk to them, and they let us use their liquid nitrogen tank to store the straws of semen in, because they have to be kept cold until the last possible moment. And I mean, it's just, I think that all of our neighbors who are farmers thought we were really crazy, but they've grown to respect us because we try really hard and ask questions, and appreciate what they're doing too.
Erlene says, I wish I would have known. I grew up milking cows.
Oh, I wish I would have known too.
And so many people are just jumping on the chat just to say, you are such an inspiration, and congratulations on a life well lived.
Oh,
there might be a bust or a boom in farming after this.
Yeah, there should be. There needs to be. All right. Have backup strategies. There's strength and diversity. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's one reason why, I mean, Raj still works his architect job part-time, and I've worked other jobs off the farm because, you know, that's sustaining our farm too. But also these little enterprises that, you know, like when our pizza ended, we're still doing the farmer's market, and now we're doing the online baking for the farmer's market and expanding our bread at the co-op and stuff and doing the chocolate. And so we haven't, I mean, even though we lost a huge part of our farm income last year, we probably did just as well this year because we didn't have any staff and we had all these other enterprises going on. So we're really fortunate that way. If something doesn't work out like you planned, it's not a failure. It's just an experience that you learned from. And, you know, our pigs they weren't a failure. They were a huge success. We had the best pork I'd never even liked ham before until we ate these pigs. But we did learn that raising pigs is not for us. And now cows aren't for us anymore either. So I don't consider that a failure at all. I consider it a huge success, but something we learned a lot from. And keep trying new things. I didn't talk about the Waughtal, this gypsy wagon that is a great story in itself, how it came to us. But last year in the winter, on my birthday, we had dinner out in the Waughtal. We stored in the greenhouse in the winter to protect it, and thought, wow, this would be such a fantastic bed and breakfast. So we spent the whole January and February, we bought a custom mattress, we redid the inside of it. We set up the whole greenhouse to be a really cool bed and breakfast Airbnb. And then the pandemic hit and we weren't able to really do it, but could happen again. So we just keep trying these crazy new ideas. And then practice gratitude. And we have so many people to be thankful for. I'm so thankful to my daughters up in the upper left-hand corner for like really inspiring us to dive in way deeper than we ever would have considered. We've had probably 30 interns over the years. Probably half of them have lived with us in our house and become like our surrogate kids. And some of them are woofers, willing workers on organic farms, an international program, and some are just people that came to us. And they have been so incredible, and we've learned as much from them as they have from us. We're thankful for the farmers market, the People's Food Co-op for providing an outlet for our wares, to our wonderful neighbors who put up with the people parking on the road and making it hard for them to get through with their big equipment sometimes, and listening to our music playing on Sunday nights and helping us with crazy questions, and all of our staff, volunteers, friends, artists, musicians, our customers, of course, and it's several organizations that have helped us out with technical advice or grants or loans, like the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation gave us a great loan for that hood and fire suppression system we needed for our kitchens. And then document your adventures, share your dreams, share your story. Thank you so much.
So one other comment that came in, such joy. We will definitely have a new perspective on our next visit to Squash Blossom Farm. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I had told Susan I was going to do this. As you maybe guessed, I love chocolate, and you can find this chocolate at the People's Food Co-op. And you don't need to be present. I put the names of the attendees in a little bowl here, super tiny, and we will get this sent to you. Because of pandemic stuff, I won't show up at your house. That would be weird. And Elaine Case, 2 bars of chocolate. We got the 70% bean to bar and the black walnut. So I'm super excited.
Hope you like it. And you can also get it, I'm really proud of this, on our website. I built a new website this winter and it has a store on it, and we can mail it out, or you can order it at the farmers market online market too. Or
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think because of COVID, I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to share.
Aren't you podding with Bill? Isn't he in your pod? So everyone, thank you so much. I always forget that I have these end ones. This is, oh yes, thank you, Susan. You had mentioned, here is the information. Squash Blossom Farm is out on Facebook. They do have a very robust website, and you just started a new blog that's talking about some of your chocolate stuff out there. And then just a reminder, if you guys want to learn more about the foundation, here are some links. We also have a Valentine's auction that's going on right now. And we thank you so much for attending.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. We'll see you at our next session. Thank you, Susan.
My pleasure.
Now I gotta figure out, now the technology part. All righty, excellent.
We still have a minute if anybody has a question.
Oh my God, I
Oh, I sped through the last half in record
That
time.
was record time, but it was still great.
I just want to thank Susan. You just have done such a wonderful job. This was so fun to listen and learn all the things you've done. You've done a wonderful job.
Oh,
Isn't it
thank you so
wonderful?
much, Joanne.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm going to be glad when COVID is over, because this is one of the things I know I miss about, it just that community. And that's what I said to Susan when we were talking about this. I love this intersection of agriculture and community, and art and agriculture. And it's just, you've built a fantastic world.
And art and food. We have a question. What dreams do you have for the future, Susan?
Oh, for the farm. Well, I would like to be able to take a vacation and travel somewhere, because we haven't been anywhere in 12 years.
I believe
that would be really fun. But I'm sad I don't have my cows anymore, but it's a kind of a relief, because I have kind of bad arthritis in my hands and arms, and so that's really hard dealing with them. But just, I don't know, I want to train my donkeys. I just got this great book called Get Your Ass to Work. Teach your donkeys how to actually do jobs on the farm. So I'm hoping to train them a little bit this summer to pull wagons and things, and help me with composting the garden. And I lost an old dog, so even though we have 3, I might have to get a puppy. And we're going to work on this meadery and chocolaterie and have a tasting room in the south side of our barn. We're working on that, and I'm working on my garden plans right now. So I don't guess I'm not thinking too far beyond a year right now.
Did you get your labels through the TTB already for the mead, or?
Our labels?
Well, you have to go through the federal.
Oh, yeah. We did for our last mead. We made a commercial batch of mead with Post Town Winery. We met those awesome folks a few years ago before they closed, and so they allowed us to make a commercial batch of that raspberry mead under their label.
Oh,
And
fun.
so we could sell it through them, and then also people could order it at our farm on their website. So that's how we got through the regulations. We haven't done it. We're just working on the space right now.
Sure. Well, it looks like we have a nice core group of people that have stuck around here. I think that we could probably all come together so that you can go on vacation. We can just trade up.
Who wants to clean the chicken coop?
John and Sandy, do you have some experience on a farm? I know Christy does. Hold on, let's see if we can get you unmuted. There we go.
Sorry. Once a year, we went to my aunt and uncle's dairy farm and took our children and our foster children and our international students, and it was just such a joy.
It was Thanksgiving. We had the old traditional 5 times as much food Thanksgiving meal.
That's our experience. City folks.
But I can clean the chicken coop. I don't mind.
Okay, good. Well, we got you on board. So
Susan usually does post before and after pictures when she's cleaning the chicken coop on Facebook. It's remarkable.
I have been a woofer when the family decided to take a long weekend, and it is my dream to have a hobby farm. So let me know how I can help.
Thank you.
We'll make your vacation happen.
Well, we have some awesome interns who, if we can get them here, have offered to come and farm sit. They're familiar with all the chores and dealing with the dogs and stuff. So
So where would you be going on vacation if you went on a vacation?
I don't know. I really want to go to Barcelona someday, but maybe if COVID's still happening, we'll do a back. We used to backpack in the Grand Canyon quite frequently. I haven't been there for years. I think I'm still capable of doing that.
I would think so with all your farm work. Go ahead, Sandy.
I have to say, get really experienced people to come in. My uncle left his dairy farm only once in his entire farming, and that was to attend his son's wedding. And he left it in what he thought was good hands with his neighbor, but the cows spooked at milking time, and they had a few disasters. So we don't want us to volunteer.
There's nothing worse than the cows getting out. That's the worst thing of all.
I've seen some of your posts about that, and it just, it seems like an adventure. I mean, I know at the time it must not, because it's such a huge challenge and it probably brings you close to tears, but I mean, you read it and it's just like, oh my gosh, because by that time everything has worked itself out and you're like, oh, Susan did it again, and Roger.
That was one reason that we parted with the cows, because they paved our road and the traffic is going really fast right now. Used to be a gravel road and people went slower, and if my cows got out, they would go down the gravel road. Now I'm just worried somebody would hit them and there would be a tragedy. But one time, the first year we had all the cows, I had 5 then. A real estate agent came, we were going to refinance our farm because interest rates had dropped. And she said at the end, I toured her around, and at the end she said, I'm just going to walk around one more time. And then I had to go drive to town to get my husband from work because one car wasn't working. And I went out and I didn't see the cows. And then I heard mooing a long ways away. And then I heard horns honking. And the real estate agent hadn't closed the gate. She'd gone out through and left the gate open. And so I had my cell phone. I called my husband, like, Raj, the cows are out and they're headed towards Douglas and they're on 75th. And so I'm running down. It was like 100 degrees out. And I'm running down, and I didn't have time to think to get a bucket of corn or anything to lure them back with. And I got down there and they were all, alfalfa field at the edge of the town. And they were not going to come back. And it was right at 5 o'clock when it's rush hour and cars were slowing down and craning their necks, looking at what was going on. And finally a car pulled over and a guy got out, an older guy, and said, do you need some help? I said, yeah, if you aren't afraid of cows, I need to get my cows back. He's like, I'm not afraid of cows. I have 3,500. He was from Durst Farms. And so his wife stopped traffic and we herded him back to the hill, and it was such a relief.
Such a great
Another example of how the universe comes in to help you when you're.
I know, it's always come through.
I always, what strikes me, and again, I grew up on a farm, we've talked about this, but I do love the generosity. I know that my community has had tragedies, and, even though it is hard to find, my dad's vacations were few and far between, he actually relied on my grandfather. My grandpa was still working cattle until he was 92 because he was crazy. He was, but he it's just that's the thing that I always loved about the farming community. It's just oh, you need help with harvesting, okay. I love that generosity, and I'm so glad to hear that that even extends to smaller farms. Because I mean, I always tell my dad he's forgot more things than I've ever learned. So he's just so intuitive. So.
Well, I think that generosity hasn't fallen far from that tree. You've been so wonderful to us and donating your time and leading all of these sessions and remembering to record and everything. So.
Well, no, that was Grace remembering to record. I had nothing to do.
We're very blessed.
You prompted me. You're good.
I surround myself with awesome people, so it's not me, it's who I choose. So, but anyway, Susan, thank you. I know you have company coming, so we should probably let you go on.
My farming aunt and uncle who my uncle's now almost 90, but they raised sheep up in North Dakota, and they're here from Mayo Clinic and on their way over for lunch. So
Excellent. Well, say hi to them. We'll get out of your dining room.
thank you so much. It was really fun.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys. We'll see most of you at the next one.
Hope so.